Hello everyone, today Biker with a Heart bring you a story full of humanity and compassion. We hope you enjoy listening.
The hum of the engines vibrated through the cabin like a distant thunderstorm, and the air was thick with the recycled scent of coffee and anxiety. High above the clouds, on a red-eye flight from Chicago to Denver, 8-year-old Lily clutched her stuffed bear so tightly it seemed strained. Her wide eyes darted to the window, where the black void outside seemed to swallow the stars. She was alone, her first time flying solo, sent by a distant aunt after her parents' sudden accident. The ticket stub in her tiny fist was crumpled, her backpack wedged under the seat like a forgotten shield. Whimpers escaped her lips, soft but piercing, drawing uneasy glances from passengers buried in their screens. If you could pause right here, in this moment of quiet desperation, and imagine the ripple it would cause, stick around, because this story unfolds in ways that remind us how one act of kindness can echo through lives. Across the aisle, Ethan Hargrove shifted in his seat, his leather jacket creaking against the thin fabric. At 42, he was a mountain of a man, tattoos snaking up his arms like ancient runes. His salt and pepper beard framing a face etched with old wounds. He wasn't supposed to be here. Flights weren't his style. Ethan preferred the roar of his Harley, the wind whipping through the Rockies with his Iron Oath crew, a band of weathered veterans who'd sworn loyalty in the shadows of war-torn deserts 2 decades ago. But tonight, a cryptic voicemail from an old comrade had pulled him skyward. "She's in trouble, brother. Remember your word." Ethan didn't know the details yet, but promises like that didn't fade. They burned. He spotted her first. The girl, pale and trembling, her bear's button eyes staring blankly. The flight attendant had passed by twice, offering crackers and a tight smile. But Lily's fear was deeper. A storm no snack could calm. A businessman in the row ahead snorted, muttering about noisy kids, while a mother 2 seats back hushed her own toddler to avoid the scene. Ethan unbuckled his seatbelt with a deliberate click, the sound cutting through the cabin's murmur like a gunshot in fog. He stood, all 6'4" of him blocking the overhead light, and the air seemed to thicken further. "Miss," he said to the attendant, his voice gravelly but steady like tires on loose gravel. She looked up from her cart, startled. "That little one's scared out of her skin. Mind if I switch seats?" He nodded toward the empty one beside Lily. The woman hesitated, glancing at the girl, then back at Ethan's imposing frame, boots scuffed from 1,000 miles, a faded patch on his jacket reading, "Iron Oath, Ride or Die." Before she could respond, Lily's whimper turned to a sob, her body curling smaller. Ethan didn't wait. He eased into the seat, the armrest groaning under his weight, and knelt slightly to meet her gaze. "Hey, kiddo," he murmured, keeping his hands visible, palms up like he was approaching a skittish colt. "Name's Ethan. This here's my first time on one of these tin cans, too. Feels like we're riding a dragon, don't it?" Lily peeked through her fingers, her cheeks streaked with tears. The bear dangled limply now, as if sensing the shift. Around them, heads turned, subtle at first, then openly. The businessman lowered his newspaper. The mother leaned forward. Ethan's presence was a force, not aggressive, but unyielding, like the mountains he called home. "I'm Lily," she whispered, voice barely audible over the engines. "My mommy and daddy, they're gone, and I'm all by myself." The words hung heavy, pulling at something raw in Ethan's chest. He knew loss, the kind that hollowed you out, left scars no ink could cover. His own family had shattered in a roadside blast overseas, a promise to protect his squad turning to ash. But he'd rebuilt with the oath, brothers who'd become blood through fire and oaths unbreakable. He nodded slowly, not pushing, just listening. "That's a heavy load for such small shoulders. Tell you what, dragons like this one, they listen if you talk right. What's your bear's name?" Mine's got a story that'd make this flight feel like a Sunday ride. Mr. Whiskers, Lily said, holding him out tentatively. Ethan took the bear gently, examining it with mock seriousness, his calloused fingers careful. Mr. Whiskers, huh? Looks like he's seen some storms. Back in my crew, we got a rule. No one rides alone, ever. You and him, you're part of the convoy now. As the plane hit a pocket of turbulence, Lily flinched, but Ethan placed a steady hand on the armrest between them, not touching her but anchoring the space. Feel that? That's just the dragon stretching its wings. We're good. He began a low rumble of a story, his voice weaving through the cabin. Tales of open roads under endless skies, of a pack of riders who faced down storms and came out stronger. Not grand heroics, but quiet truths, the kind that stuck. Passengers listened, drawn in despite themselves. The businessman pocketed his phone. An elderly woman across the way dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Ethan's words painted pictures. The glint of chrome at dawn, the shared silence around a campfire, the weight of a vow that outlasted the miles. Lily's grip loosened, her breaths evening out, until her head lolled against the seat, Mr. Whiskers tucked under her chin. But Ethan's mind raced beneath the calm. That voicemail, it tied back to a forgotten promise from his army days, to a fellow soldier's kin in peril. Lily's face, so like the photos he'd seen years ago, stirred the embers. As the seatbelt sign dinged off, he caught the attendant's eye. "She's family now," he said simply. "We'll land together." By the time the wheels touched down in Denver, the cabin was hushed, a collective breath held and released. Lily stirred, smiling faintly as Ethan helped with her bag. Strangers clapped softly, not for show, but from a place deep where humanity still flickered. Tears glistened on cheeks, whispers of "God bless" rippled like aftershocks. Ethan's next move wasn't planned, but it was inevitable. A call to his crew, 200 strong across the states, ready to ride for the lost. One scared girl on a plane had reignited an old oath, and in that moment, the iron oath expanded, binding fates in ways no one could foresee. The airport lights buzzed overhead as they deplaned, Ethan's arm a gentle shield around her shoulders. Outside, the night air carried the promise of rain, sharp and clean. He didn't know the full storm ahead, corrupt guardians, hidden threats to the vulnerable, but honor demanded he face it, for Lily, for the brother who'd trusted him, for the family forged in loss. The road called, and Ethan answered, one quiet step at a time. The Denver airport terminal hummed with the low drone of announcements and rolling suitcases. A sterile glow from fluorescent lights casting long shadows on the tiled floor. Ethan Hargrove kept Lily close, his broad frame a living barrier against the rush of travelers. Her small hand slipped into his, tentative at first, then trusting, as if the plane's confines had forged an invisible tether. The night air outside had chilled, carrying the faint metallic tang of impending rain, and Ethan's leather jacket did little to ward off the unease settling in his gut. That voicemail from his old comrade Jack Harlan, lost to a desert ambush years back, echoed in his mind. "Watch over my girl if things go south. She's got no one else." Ethan hadn't connected the dots until Lily's face matched the faded photo in his wallet, a snapshot from a war-zone Christmas. Jack grinning beside a bundled infant. They moved toward the baggage claim, Lily's backpack slung over Ethan's shoulder like it weighed nothing. She glanced up at him, eyes still rimmed red but brighter now. "Are we going home?" she asked, her voice a fragile thread in the chaos. Ethan crouched to her level, the scuff of his boots echoing softly. "Not just yet, kiddo, but we're getting you safe. That's the plan." He pulled out his phone, the screen's blue light etching lines deeper into his weathered face. His thumb hovered over the contact labeled Oath Central. a group chat with his Iron Oath brothers, 200 souls scattered from the Appalachians to the Pacific, bound by ink and unbreakable vows. Veterans like him, mechanics, welders, men who'd traded fatigues for leathers but never shed the weight of promises kept. As the carousel groaned to life, spewing luggage like reluctant confessions, Ethan hit dial on a private line to Marcus, his second in command, a burly ex-Marine with a laugh like thunder. The call connected on the second ring, Marcus's voice crackling through, laced with the rumble of a late-night garage somewhere in Wyoming. "Ethan, you airborne or what? Thought you hated those metal birds. Still breathing, brother. Listen close. This ain't a social call." Ethan kept his tone low, shielding Lily from the words as she watched a conveyor belt swallow a stray toy. He recounted the flight, the girl's fear, the spark of recognition. "It's Jack's daughter, Lily, 8 years old, flying solo after whatever took her, folks. That promise we made, the one round the fire in Kandahar, it's calling due." Silence stretched, broken only by the distant clatter of bags. Marcus swore softly, the sound heavy with shared ghosts. "Damn, Jack's blood. You riding point on this?" "All the way. But there's a snag. Her tickets to some group home in the suburbs. Social services tagged it. I ain't letting her vanish into the system, not on my watch." Ethan's jaw tightened, memories flooding back. Young faces in uniform, oaths sworn under starless skies to protect what family remained. The Iron Oath wasn't just a club, it was redemption stitched from loss, a convoy against the world's indifference. Marcus didn't hesitate. "Coordinates incoming. I'll rally the nearest. 20 riders in Colorado Springs, more en route. We meet at the old mill off I-25 at dawn. Bring the girl. We'll sort the guardians." Ethan pocketed the phone as Lily's suitcase emerged, a pink monstrosity with stickers peeling like old wounds. He hefted it effortlessly, slinging it over his other shoulder. "Come on, Mr. Whiskers needs a proper escort." Lily giggled, the sound a small victory, and they pushed through the glass doors into the parking lot. The air bit sharper now, rain spitting in fits, turning the asphalt to a slick mirror under sodium lamps. Ethan's rental truck, a beat-up Ford he'd grabbed at O'Hare, waited like a faithful steed, its bed empty save for a spare helmet strapped down. But as they approached, headlights flared from a black sedan idling nearby, its engine a predatory purr. 2 figures emerged, a woman in a crisp suit, clipboard in hand, and a uniformed officer, badge glinting like a false promise. The social worker, Ms. Elena Vargas, her name tag read, approached with measured steps, her smile practiced but thin. "Lily Thompson, I'm from Child Protective Services. We've been notified of your arrival. Your aunt arranged everything." Lily shrank against Ethan's leg, her fingers twisting into his jeans. Ethan's stance shifted, protective, the tattoos on his knuckles flexing like coiled springs. "She's fine right where she is, Ma'am. I'm family, a friend of her father's." Vargas's eyes narrowed, scanning his jacket. The patches that spoke of roads less traveled. "Sir, protocol requires we escort her directly. Unaccompanied minors don't just vanish with strangers." The officer stepped forward, hand resting near his holster, the gesture casual but loaded, a reminder of authority's cold edge. Ethan met their gaze evenly, his voice steady as bedrock. "Stranger, I've known her blood since before she drew breath. Check your records. Jack Harlan, service number ends in 472. He trusted me with her safety." The rain picked up, drumming on the truck's roof like impatient fingers, blurring the lines between them. Lily whimpered, and Ethan knelt again, whispering, "It's all right. Dragons and guardians, we handle 'em together." Vargas consulted her clipboard, rain smudging the ink, her composure cracking just a fraction. "This isn't procedure. We have legal custody pending investigation." But doubt flickered in her eyes. Ethan's words carried the weight of truths unearthed, stirring something human beneath the bureaucracy. The officer cleared his throat, glancing at the girl. "Look, if there's documentation, send it through channels," Ethan cut in. Rising slowly, a wall of resolve. "But tonight she rides with me. Dawn at the mill. Bring your papers then." He opened the truck door, lifting Lily inside with care, her bear settling on the dash like a sentinel. The sedan lingered as Ethan fired the engine, its growl drowning the downpour. They pulled away, taillights fading into the storm-swept night. But Ethan knew pursuit was coming. Shadows of corruption that preyed on the vulnerable, guardians more interested in quotas than hearts. Miles out, on the empty highway flanked by whispering pines, Lily leaned her head on his arm. "Are they bad people?" she asked, the question slicing through the wiper's rhythm. "Not all," Ethan replied, eyes on the road's vanishing point. "But some forget why they signed up. We don't. That's our oath." His phone buzzed, Marcus confirming the rally, riders converging like stars aligning. The Iron Oath was mobilizing, not for war, but for justice's quiet thunder. Yet, as lightning cracked the sky, illuminating a sign for the mill ahead, Ethan sensed the deeper rot. Whispers of falsified reports, a system twisted to silence the lost. Lily's safety hung by the thread of his word, and come dawn, that thread would bind them all, or snap under the weight of forgotten honor. And now, I invite you to leave in the comments where you're watching from and the exact hour you heard this story. We wish to know how far these northern confessions travel and at what moments they reach you. The rain hammered the windshield like a relentless drumbeat, turning the highway into a ribbon of blurred silver under the truck's headlights. Ethan Hargrove gripped the wheel tighter, the leather of his gloves creaking against the worn vinyl, as the Ford cut through the night toward the old mill off I-25. Lily sat buckled in the passenger seat, her small frame swallowed by the oversized booster he'd improvised from a blanket and belts. Mr. Whiskers perched on the dash, his stitched eyes reflecting the occasional flash of lightning that split the sky like a vow breaking. The air inside the cab smelled of wet denim and faint traces of airport pretzels, a fragile normalcy amid the storm's fury. Ethan glanced at her, the girl's eyelids heavy, but sleep elusive. "Try to rest, kiddo. Dawn's coming soon enough." His voice was a low anchor, steady against the wiper's frantic swipe, but his mind churned like the thunder rolling in from the peaks. Jack Harlan's last words, whispered in a foxhole under mortar fire, "If I don't make it, Ethan, swear you'll shield her. She's the light we fought for." That oath, etched deeper than any tattoo, had pulled him from his solitary rides through the Badlands. The Iron Oath crew wasn't built for this, rescuing ghosts from paperwork prisons, but loyalty didn't negotiate. Behind them, the black sedan's taillights had vanished miles back, swallowed by the downpour, but Ethan knew they weren't done. Ms. Vargas's clipped tone lingered, laced with the bureaucracy that hid sharper edges. Quotas met, files closed, vulnerable lives shuffled like cards in a rigged game. He'd seen it before, in the aftermath of war. Systems that devoured the broken instead of mending them. Lily's parents' accident, too clean, too sudden. Whispers from Marcus hinted at foul play, a land dispute gone dark, leaving an orphan in the crosshairs of those profiting from silence. The truck's tires hissed over standing water as they crested a hill, the silhouette of the mill emerging like a forgotten sentinel against the stormy horizon. Abandoned decades ago, its rusted silos and crumbling brick walls stood as a neutral ground for outcasts, far from prying eyes, close enough to the interstate for a quick exodus if needed. Ethan eased off the gas, scanning the shadows for the first glints of chrome. They came soon, a lone headlight piercing the veil, then another, until a dozen Harleys idled in formation, their engines a synchronized growl that drowned the rain. Riders dismounted, leathers glistening. Faces shadowed under helmets etched with the oath's emblem, a clenched fist around a broken chain. Marcus was first to approach, his massive frame unfolding from a customized softale, rain sluicing off his beard like tears from stone. He clapped Ethan's shoulder, the impact solid as brotherhood. "Brought the storm with you, huh?" His eyes softened on Lily, who peered out the window, wide-eyed at the gathering. 20 strong now, more en route from the springs and beyond, mechanics with grease-stained hands, a nurse named Carla who'd patched wounds in field tents, an ex-cop turned welder whose badge had soured on corruption. They weren't angels. Scars told tales of bar fights and bad choices, but in the oath, redemption wasn't preached, it was ridden. Ethan cut the engine, the sudden quiet amplifying the rain's patter on the cab's roof. He helped Lily down, her sneakers splashing in puddles that mirrored the flickering bike lights. "These are my brothers and sisters, Lily, the kind that show up when the road gets rough." She clutched Mr. Whiskers tighter, but a tentative smile broke through as Carla knelt, offering a spare poncho with a warmth that cut the chill. "Hey there, brave one. Heard you tamed a dragon in the sky. That's oath material." The group formed a loose circle under the mill's overhang, steam rising from exhaust pipes like exhaled promises. Marcus spread a map on a weathered crate, its edges curling in the damp. "Social services is mobilizing. Vargas ain't alone. Word is, the officer's tied to a firm that's been snatching properties from folks like Lily's parents. Accident, more like a cover for eviction by force. They want the girl quiet, filed away, so no questions linger." His finger traced a route north, away from Denver's sprawl. "We ride at first light, draw 'em out here, show 'em the oath don't bend to paper trails." Ethan nodded, his gaze drifting to Lily, now perched on a bike seat with Carla, giggling at a story of a cross-country run that outran a blizzard. The sight twisted something in him, a father's ache he hadn't earned but couldn't deny. "Jack trusted us. We get her to safe ground, my place in the foothills, no more solo flights." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the riders, fists bumping in silent solidarity. But tension coiled beneath. One rider, a wiry vet named Tyler, shifted uneasily. "What if they bring badges? Real ones, not that rent-a-cop." "Then we stand," Ethan said, his voice carrying the weight of deserts crossed. "Not with fists, but truth. We've got records. Jack's service file, my guardianship claim from his will. They push, we push back with light, not shadows." The rain eased to a drizzle, stars peeking through like hesitant witnesses, and the first grey of dawn crept over the ridges, painting the mill in muted gold. Engines revved in test, a symphony of resolve, as the crew shared thermoses of black coffee, steam curling like campfire smoke from long-ago nights. Lily wandered back, tugging Ethan's sleeve. "Will they let me stay with you?" Her question hung, innocent as morning mist, but it pierced the group's armor. Ethan lifted her onto his hip, the weight familiar yet foreign. "They'll have to reckon with all of us first, and we reckon deep." As the horizon blushed, headlights pierced the gloom from the south. The sedans approached, flanked by a patrol car, their sirens silent but intent clear. Vargas stepped out first, umbrella shielding her clipboard. The officer beside her with reinforcements, 2 more uniforms, radios crackling with unseen orders. The Oath Riders mounted up, a wall of leather and steel, engines idling like held breaths. Ethan set Lily behind Carla on a bike, her arms wrapping tight around the woman's waist. "Hold on, little rider, we're convoy now," Vargas called out, voice amplified by the open space. "This is unauthorized. Stand down or face obstruction charges." But her eyes betrayed cracks, scanning the unified front, the quiet power in their stillness. Ethan stepped forward, raindrops beading on his beard like unshed resolve. "Charges! Try honor first. Lily's under our protection by blood and word. You want her? Prove it's for her good, not your ledgers." The officer's hand hovered near his belt. But Marcus's bike edged closer, a subtle blockade. Tension thickened the air, thick as fog off the river, every second stretching like a slow pan in the rising light. Whispers among the authorities hinted at hesitation, reports of the oath's reach, veterans with pull in quiet places. Then a breakthrough. The lead officer's radio buzzed, a dispatcher's voice cutting sharp. "Stand by, new directive. Harlan file verified. Temporary custody to Hargrove pending review." Vargas's face paled, clipboard slipping in the wet. It wasn't victory yet. Threads of corruption lingered, promises of audits and shadowed deals. But in that dawn-lit standoff, the oath held, a family chosen expanding to shield one lost soul. As the authorities retreated, tails between legs for now, the riders whooped softly, engines roaring to life in celebration. Lily's laughter mingled with the thunder of departure, the convoy snaking north like a river of iron will. Ethan rode point, wind whipping his jacket, the road ahead winding through canyons that whispered of trials to come. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was this ride, oaths renewed under the sun's first glare, binding broken pieces into something unbreakable. But deeper shadows loomed, alliances tested, truths unearthed, and Ethan's grip tightened on the handlebars, ready for the turns honor demanded. The sun climbed higher over the jagged foothills, casting long shadows from the pine-cloaked ridges that flanked the winding blacktop. Ethan's Harley led the convoy, its V-twin pulse a steady heartbeat against the rush of wind that tugged at his jacket like insistent fingers. Behind him, the Iron Oath riders stretched in a disciplined line. 20 machines now, their chrome accents flashing like signals in the morning light, engines harmonizing in a low, purposeful rumble. Lily rode pillion with Carla. Her small arms locked around the woman's midsection, Mr. Whiskers peeking from her backpack like a watchful scout. The air carried the crisp bite of elevation, mingled with the earthy scent of damp soil from the night's rain, and for a fleeting moment the road felt like sanctuary, a ribbon of asphalt carving freedom from the chaos below. But Ethan knew better than to trust the calm. His mind replayed the standoff at the mill, Vargas's retreating figure, the officer's radio crackle pulling them back like a leash. It was a reprieve, not resolution. Jack Harlan's will had named him Guardian in a quiet codicil, buried in service records that Marcus had unearthed overnight through old contacts. Veterans with access to the system's underbelly. Yet the accident that claimed Lily's parents gnawed at him, a loose thread in the fabric of official stories. Whispers from the crew suggested more. A development firm circling the family's remote ranch, pressuring sales with veiled threats, until a freak truck collision silenced the resistance. Corruption dressed as progress, preying on the isolated, and now it reached for the orphan left behind. The convoy crested a rise, the valley unfolding below like a crumpled map, dotted with aspens turning gold in the autumn chill. Ethan signaled a pull-off at a roadside diner, a weathered clapboard relic with a flickering neon sign promising hot coffee and quiet. The riders fanned out in the gravel lot, engines cutting to a hush that amplified the distant call of ravens. Steam rose from cooling pipes as Carla helped Lily down, the girl's cheeks flushed from the wind, eyes wide with the thrill of motion. "That was like flying, but better," she said, her voice carrying a spark of wonder that pierced the group's guarded faces. Ethan dismounted, boots crunching on loose stones, and gathered them under the diner's awning. The place was empty, save for a grizzled cook flipping burgers behind the counter, the sizzle and grease scent a grounding ritual. Maps and phones emerged, the crew forming a huddle like soldiers briefing in the field. Marcus leaned on his bike, arms crossed over a chest broad as a barrel. "Temporary custody buys time, but they'll circle back." Vargas radioed for backups, judges in their pocket, firms with deep ties to the badges. "We need proof, solid as these mountains, to bury their claims." Tyler, the wiry vet with a perpetual squint from desert suns, nodded toward his tablet. Got a lead. Lily's folks filed complaints last month. Harassment forged docs on their land, buried in county records. But I know a clerk who owes the oath. Quiet type. Lost her brother in the same sand we did. His fingers danced over the screen, pulling up grainy scans. Emails, blurry photos of surveyors trespassing, a final warning letter from the firm, signed by a name that rang familiar. Victor Kane, a slick operator who dodged war profiteering charges years back. Ethan's jaw set, the name stirring silt from his past. Kane had been a contractor in theatre, cutting corners on supplies that cost lives, including Jack's squad. If he's pulling strings here, it's personal. Jack called him out once, nearly ended in a court-martial. He glanced at Lily, now sipping hot chocolate at a picnic table with Carla, her laughter a fragile melody against the diner's hum. The sight fueled the fire in his veins, not rage, but the steady burn of justice long delayed. The Iron Oath had faced down cartels and corporate greed before, not with bullets but barricades of truth. Petitions signed by hundreds, media tipped anonymously, alliances with unlikely souls who'd tasted the system's bite. As the crew plotted, a low rumble approached from the south, not the storm's echo, but engines, deliberate and closing. Ethan straightened, hand instinctively on his handlebars, as 3 unmarked vans crested the horizon, dust plumes trailing like accusations. They braked hard in the lot, doors sliding open to disgorge a half-dozen men in dark jackets. Security types, not cops, their postures screaming hired muscle. Leading them was Kane himself, a trim figure in a tailored coat, silver hair gleaming under the sun, his smile as polished as the watch on his wrist. "Mr. Hargrove," he called, voice smooth as oil on water, stepping forward with hands visible. "A word about the girl. This doesn't have to escalate." The riders tensed, a wall of leathers and resolve, but Ethan raised a palm, holding them steady. "Escalate? You mean like running her folks off the road for a quick land grab?" His words landed like gravel in the quiet, drawing Kane up short. Lily froze at the table, Carla shielding her instinctively, the hot chocolate forgotten. Kane's composure flickered, eyes narrowing to slits. "Bold claims, but custody's a legal matter. Hand her over and we avoid complications." His men shifted, bulges under jackets hinting at more than words. The air thickening with unspoken threats. The diner's cook peered out, then vanished inside, dialing unseen. Ethan stepped closer, his frame towering, tattoos flexing like warnings. "Legal? Like the docs you faked on Harlan's deed?" "We got copies, Kane, and witnesses." He nodded to Tyler, who held up the tablet, screen glowing with evidence. The crew murmured assent, phones out now, recording the exchange, a digital shield against the dark. Kane's gaze darted, calculating, but the Oath's unity was a force he'd underestimated. Not wild outlaws, but guardians forged in loss, their loyalty a chain no bribe could break. A standoff stretched, seconds ticking like a slow zoom on weathered faces, the sun beating down, casting stark contrasts of light and shadow. Kane's radio buzzed, a handler's voice urgent. "Pull back! Leaks out! Media's sniffing!" His facade cracked, a vein pulsing at his temple. "This isn't over!" He spat, signaling retreat, the vans peeling away in a spray of gravel that stung like parting shots. The diner lot exhaled as one, riders exchanging nods of grim triumph. Ethan knelt by Lily, brushing dirt from her sleeve. "Scary folks, but see, we stand together, they scatter." She nodded, hugging Mr. Whiskers tight, the bear's fur damp from the morning's remnants. Carla ruffled her hair. "Oath rule. No one faces the storm alone." As the convoy reformed, engines igniting in a chorus of defiance, Ethan mounted up, the road north calling clearer now. Kane's retreat was a crack in the armor, but deeper rot festered, judges to sway, files to expose. Redemption rode with them, a promise renewed in the wind's whisper, binding the chosen family against the tide. Yet as they accelerated, a distant siren wailed, hinting at trials sharpening ahead, honor's path never straight, but always true. If this story touched you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of quiet heroism. The asphalt blurred beneath the Harley's tires as the convoy thundered north through the canyon's embrace, the sun now a fierce midday blaze that turned the air into a shimmering haze. Ethan Hargrove rode at the fore, his posture unyielding against the wind's relentless push, the scent of pine resin and sun-baked rock mingling with the faint, acrid bite of exhaust. Behind him, the iron oath stretched like a chain unbroken, 20 riders strong, their engines a unified growl that echoed off the sheer granite walls, a declaration to the empty wilds. Lily clung to Carla's back, her laughter occasionally cutting through the roar, a sound as pure as mountain stream water, chasing away the shadows of the diner confrontation. Mr. Whiskers bobbed in her pack, a talisman against the uncertainties coiling ahead. Ethan's mind, however, was a storm of its own. Victor Kane's retreat had been too swift, too calculated, a predator circling for a better angle, not fleeing. The evidence Tyler had flashed on his tablet burned in Ethan's thoughts. Those scanned complaints from Lily's parents, timestamps aligning with the accident that had orphaned her. Jack Harlan's voice haunted him, a gravelly echo from a bunker half a world away. "Keep her light burning, Ethan. Don't let the dark swallow it." That promise, sworn amid the dust and fear of deployment, had been a lifeline then. Now it was armor against the creeping rot of Kane's empire. The man wasn't just a land grabber, he was a weaver of webs, pulling strings from boardrooms to back alleys, turning justice into a commodity. The road dipped into a narrow pass, the canyon narrowing like a vice, and Ethan signaled the pullover at a scenic overlook, a cluster of weathered picnic tables overlooking a river that foamed white against boulders below. The riders eased to a stop, dust settling in lazy swirls. The sudden silence amplifying the river's rush and the distant cry of an eagle wheeling overhead. Carla dismounted first, lifting Lily down with a gentleness born of her own losses, a child gone too soon in the war's aftermath. "How's the view from up there, little scout?" she asked, pointing to the endless blue sky framing the peaks. Lily spun, arms wide, the wind tousling her hair like an old friend. "It's like the dragon's playground." Her joy was a balm, but Ethan's eyes scanned the horizon, ever vigilant. Marcus joined him at the railing, the two men leaning on the splintered wood, their reflections distorted in the water's churn. "Kane's not done," Marcus said, voice low, pulling a thermos from his saddlebag and pouring steaming coffee into dented mugs. The aroma grounded them, rich and bitter, a ritual from countless dawn patrols. "Never is," Ethan replied, sipping the heat that seared his throat. "But we've got leverage now. Those files, Tyler's pulling more, cross-referencing with old service logs. Kane's firm has a history, dodging contracts, silencing voices. Jack's death might tie in deeper than land." The words hung heavy, stirring the ghosts. Jack had confronted Kane once, in a supply depot overrun by shortcuts, faulty gear that failed under fire. It had cost lives, including friends who'd never ride home. The oath had formed from those ashes, a brotherhood vowing no more forgotten oaths. Tyler approached, tablet in hand, his lean frame casting a long shadow. "Update, the clerk came through. Lily's parents weren't just fighting eviction, they had proof of tampering. Survey maps altered, signatures forged. And get this, Vargas? She's on Kane's payroll, funneled through a shell agency. Social services as a front." He swiped the screen, revealing blurred emails, timestamps glowing like accusations. The group gathered, heads close, the river's murmur underscoring their whispers. Carla read over Tyler's shoulder, her nurse's hands steady but eyes flashing with the fire of one who'd bandaged too many victims of the system's indifference. Lily wandered near, drawn by the huddle, her sneakers scuffing the gravel. "Are we talking about the mean man?" she asked, voice small but curious, clutching her bear like a shield. Ethan knelt, meeting her gaze at eye level, the sun warming his back like a benediction. "Yeah, kiddo, but talking's how we fix things. No more hiding." He didn't sugarcoat. The oath taught truth over illusions. Lily nodded solemnly, then surprised him by adding, "Mommy said bad things happen when people forget promises, like Daddy's stories about you." The words landed like a punch, raw and real, rippling through the riders. Marcus cleared his throat, emotion etching deeper lines in his face. "Smart lady. That's why we're here. Promises don't rust." The group murmured agreement, a quiet vow renewing in the mountain air, binding them tighter than blood. But the peace shattered with the whine of tires on the Overlook's access road. A sleek SUV crested the rise, black as midnight, flanked by 2 patrol cars. Official this time, lights off but presence heavy. Vargas emerged from the lead vehicle, her suit rumpled now, clipboard replaced by a folder thick with papers. Beside her, a stern-faced judge in civilian attire and the officer from the airport, his uniform crisp but eyes evasive. No cane, but his shadow loomed in their approach, deliberate steps crunching the earth. "Mr. Hargrove," Vargas called, voice carrying over the wind, laced with false authority. "This ends now. Court order for immediate transfer. The girl's safety is at risk with unsanctioned guardians." The judge nodded, unfolding the document, its seal glinting like a counterfeit coin. Riders shifted, forming a loose perimeter, engines off but hands near keys, a silent readiness, not aggression. Ethan rose slowly, his height casting a long shade over the papers. "Safety, or silencing. We've seen the strings, Mom. Forged deeds, payroll ties. Hand her to Kane's machine, and what then?" He gestured to Tyler, who held up the tablet screen broadcasting the evidence in stark pixels. The judge's brow furrowed, scanning the display, while Vargas paled, her composure fracturing like dry earth. The officer stepped forward, hand on his radio. "Stand down. This is law." But doubt flickered. Whispers among the authorities hinted at internal rifts, leaks spreading, higher-ups questioning the chain. Carla scooped Lily close, the girl burying her face in the woman's jacket. "She's not a file," Carla said, voice steady as a scalpel. "She's family, chosen, sworn." The words ignited the oath, murmurs rising like a tide, phones capturing the moment, a digital testament to integrity over edict. Tension coiled, the river below roaring as if urging resolve. The judge hesitated, flipping through the folder, then the tablet's glow. "This requires review. Evidence presented alters the interim." Vargas protested, but the order was given, a 48-hour hold, investigation pending. Retreat followed, vehicles departing in a cloud of dust, leaving the Overlook to the wind's sigh. The riders exhaled, relief mingling with wariness. Ethan watched them go, the canyons swallowing their forms. Victory tasted tentative. Like dawn before full light, Kane's web tangled but not torn. Lily tugged his hand. "Did we win?" "Not yet," he said, lifting her onto his bike seat. "But we're riding stronger." Engines roared back to life, the convoy surging forward, the road twisting toward Ethan's foothill haven, a sanctuary of log walls and open skies. There, plans would deepen, allies called, truths amplified. The oath's reach, exposing the corruption's core. Redemption wasn't swift, it was this endurance. Promises carried mile by mile, forging light from the encroaching dark. Yet as shadows lengthened with the afternoon's slant, Ethan sensed the final push looming, a confrontation where honor would clash with empire, deciding Lily's fate and the soul of the vows that bound them. The convoy crested the final ridge as the sun dipped toward the western peaks, painting the sky in strokes of fiery orange and deepening indigo, the air cooling to a crisp edge that carried the scent of wild sage and cooling earth. Ethan's Harley led the way down the gravel switchbacks to his foothill sanctuary, a modest cabin nestled among aspens, its log walls weathered by winters past. Smoke curling lazily from the stone chimney where a fire already crackled in anticipation. The iron oath riders followed in tight formation, their engines softening to a respectful purr as they pulled into the clearing, dust settling like a sigh of arrival. Lily rode with Carla still, her small frame leaning forward now, eyes alight with the adventure's glow, Mr. Whiskers secured in her lap like a co-pilot. Ethan killed his engine first, the sudden quiet amplifying the rustle of leaves and the distant hoot of an owl stirring in the twilight. He dismounted, boots sinking into the soft loam, and extended a hand to help Lily down. Her fingers were warm in his calloused palm, a trust earned over miles of uncertainty. "Home for now," he said softly, his voice gravelly from the wind's assault. The cabin's porchlight flickered on, cast by Marcus, who'd arrived ahead to stoke the hearth and brew a pot of strong tea, rituals that grounded the oath in the ordinary, amid the storm. Inside, the space unfolded like a warm embrace, rough-hewn beams overhead, a stone fireplace dominating one wall with flames dancing shadows across framed photos. Faded snapshots of desert patrols, brothers in leathers raising mugs under starlit skies. The air smelled of pine resin from the logs and the earthy tang of stew simmering on the stove, Carla's contribution from her saddlebag stores. The riders filtered in, shedding jackets and helmets, forming a circle around the heavy oak table, scarred from countless strategy sessions. Tyler set his tablet in the center, its screen a glowing oracle amid the lantern light, while Marcus poured steaming mugs, the ceramic clinking like toasts to survival. Lily perched on a stool by the fire, wrapped in a wool blanket that dwarfed her, nibbling on cornbread Carla had warmed. Her presence softened the edges of the room, drawing smiles from hardened faces, reminders that this fight was for more than oaths. It was for the fragile lights that endured. Ethan leaned against the mantel, arms crossed, his tattoos catching the fire's flicker like embers reignited. "Sun's down, but the real work starts now. Cain's web, it's fraying, but he'll strike back. We expose it clean, no shadows." Tyler nodded, swiping through files with deliberate taps. "Got the full thread. Cain's firm rerouted funds to Vargas's agency, masking bribes as consulting fees. Lily's parents uncovered it, tried to go public with a lawyer tied to environmental watchdogs. The accident, brake lines cut, witnesses bought off. I forwarded everything to a contact at the state attorney's office, an old oath ally, clean as these mountains." The room hummed with quiet intensity, heads nodding, the weight of evidence shifting like a tide turning. Carla added printouts from her nursing network, reports of similar cases, families displaced under false pretenses, children funneled into the systems more. But as the clock ticked past 8, gravel crunched outside, a lone vehicle approaching, headlights cutting the gathering dark like accusatory beams. Ethan moved to the window, peering through the curtains, his hand instinctively near the knife on his belt, not for use, but presence. The SUV idled, then a figure emerged. Not Cain, but a disheveled Vargas, alone, her suit jacket unbuttoned, folder clutched like a lifeline. She knocked tentatively, the sound echoing through the cabin like a confession's prelude. Marcus opened the door, his bulk filling the frame, but Ethan waved him aside. "Let her speak." Vargas stepped in, eyes darting to the assembled faces, the fire's warmth doing little to thaw her pallor. Rain from an earlier shower beaded on her shoes, pooling on the floorboards. I need to talk. Off record." She placed the folder on the table, hands trembling slightly. Kane's pressuring the judge. Threats, payoffs, but the evidence you leaked, it's spreading. Reporters are calling, higher-ups are pulling strings to audit. I was in deep, debts from my own losses, a kid in college, but this crossed lines I can't uncross. The room held its breath, the crackle of the fire underscoring her words. Lily looked up from her spot, curiosity mingling with caution, but Carla kept a gentle hand on her shoulder. Ethan studied Vargas, reading the fractures in her facade, the weariness of one who'd traded integrity for survival, now glimpsing redemption's cost. "Why now?" he asked, voice steady as the timbers around them. "Because of her," Vargas said, nodding toward Lily, her voice cracking. "I saw the fear on that plane, heard the stories, my own daughter. She was like that once, scared and alone after her father left. Kane's machine chews up lives like hers. I have recordings, his calls, admissions. Hand them over with your files, and it ends him. Immunity for me, protection for the girl." She slid a thumb drive across the table, its plastic glint catching the light like a key to locked doors. Murmurs rippled through the riders, fists unclenching into nods of reluctant alliance. Tyler plugged in the drive, verifying the audio. Kane's voice, oily and incriminating, plotting the cover-up with chilling precision. "It's gold," Tyler confirmed, a grin breaking his squint. "The oath's unity sealed it. No vengeance, just truth's unyielding march." Ethan extended a hand, not in friendship, but accord. "You ride with us on this, ma'am. For the light." Vargas exhaled, shoulders sagging as the weight lifted fractionally. By midnight, the files were bundled and sent, digital arrows piercing the Empire's heart. Dawn brought news. Kane's arrest in a pre-dawn raid, his firm unraveling under federal scrutiny, Vargas's testimony, the linchpin. The judge recused. A new hearing granting Ethan full guardianship, the ranch secured for Lily as her legacy. In the cabin's glow, as the convoy prepared to disperse, riders hugging Lily goodbye, promising visits like uncles and aunts of the road, Ethan sat with her on the porch, stars wheeling overhead like witnesses to oaths fulfilled. The night air was cool, scented with dew-kissed grass, the fire's embers fading inside. "You kept your promise," Lily said, leaning against him, Mr. Whiskers between them. Ethan wrapped an arm around her, the gesture fatherly now, earned through fire. "We all did. Jack, the oath, even those who turned back. Family's what you build. Kiddo, 1 mile, one truth at a time." The road ahead stretched open, trials past, forging stronger bonds, redemption not in grand gestures, but the quiet honor of showing up. As the last bike's rumble faded into the hills, the cabin stood sentinel, a testament to promises that outlasted storms, binding the chosen in unbreakable light. "Thank you for riding along on this journey of loyalty and quiet courage. If it touched your heart, please subscribe for more stories that celebrate the power of unbreakable promises."